Welcome to the Apartment Guys, where we dive deep into all things multifamily investing. Our mission is to educate, inspire, and empower real estate investors to reach their highest potential. Each week, host Tate Seamer interviews high-level guests from all over the industry who are sure to bring valuable, actionable ideas that will propel your career to the next level. Whether you're just starting out or a seasoned investor, you are in the right place. And now your host, the Apartment Guy, Tate Seamer.
Welcome everybody back. Another episode of the Apartment Guys coming at you. And today we've got kind of a profile in entrepreneurialism with Mr. Ian Brown as my guest. And Ian, welcome to the show. I'm really stoked to have you.
Tate, thank you very much. I deeply appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. Big fan.
Yeah, appreciate that. You're welcome, and you're welcome on the show. I'm glad to have you. I'm really eager to learn more about you. I know you're in Jacksonville, and I know you come from the world of law, amongst other things, appraisals, and you have a pretty wide scope of background in your background, and I'm interested in hearing all about that. But tell us a little bit about your story, Ian.
Certainly. So I think the part that's applicable to this show would probably start in college. I went to Florida State University for undergrad, and Florida State was actually $100 a credit hour when I went, and I could get through undergrad debt free. I needed to be able to pay my own living, my own car insurance. I didn't have a car payment. And of course, my beer budget got out of control sometimes, but it led me to waiting tables and bartending, and I was paying my own rent. And back then I was actually paying it by hand to the landlord's wife in cash in downtown Tallahassee. And I think the moment I made that first rent payment as a hardworking undergrad student, I said, how much does this house cost that I'm paying rent on? Divide it by the 4 rooms. Did some rough math back then, and didn't have any formal training, but I knew I wanted to be on the other side of that equation as soon as possible. So I think that kind of lit my candle. Always been a bit of a hustler. I was the kid growing up that would dive in a recycling bin, pull out all the aluminum so I could, buy a bike. And I just didn't have an avenue until I got a little older to where I could use a little bit of that rise and grind mentality with a profitable endeavor like real estate investment. So fast forward, after Florida State, I was a school teacher. I was a history major, believe it or not. And I taught high school, coached track, coached football, and stuck in that for a couple of years. I really enjoyed it, but I will confess to your audience, it was not making ends meet as a head of household school teacher with a newborn. So, yeah. And since this show is financially oriented, I was actually running negative at least $500 a month on credit cards. No idea how I was going to get out of it. I really enjoyed teaching. I loved coaching. And, but anyways, I just knew I had to figure something out. So at around the age of 26, I got my real estate license thinking I would sell houses while teaching and coaching. And it ends up that it just didn't work out very well. So I've had my real estate license for a while, 15, 16 years. I've long since been a broker in Florida and in Georgia. But that was my first real estate credential. And what really was the big turning point was after a couple of years of teaching high school, a family friend reached out to me and my younger brother. We both did this, and we became commercial real estate appraisers. It wasn't well explained to us, but he said, you're going to learn commercial real estate. And he's to this date my greatest mentor. I'll give him a shout out, Eric Hector. And he's an MAI commercial appraiser, and he put us in the deep end right away. So I was doing hotels, apartments, golf courses, strip centers, offices, self-storage. We had to do, when you do bank work, you can't cherry pick asset classes. They give you the request for proposal, and you need to fire back a turnaround and a fee and go appraise it. So we were in the deep end right away with good supervision, and learned a lot. I learned so much in those 5 years or so doing commercial real estate appraisal. Appraised hundreds of hotels and apartments and student housing and everything. So that's where I learned how to use Excel, run 5 or 10 year cash flows. I mean, I was a history major. So you start talking to me about terminal cap rates and discount rates, and my eyes were crossing. But over the course of those 3-5 years, got really comfortable in cash flows, but never used the skill set really to my own benefit. Just wrote my reports and took my check. That was in my 20s going into 30. Fast forward a little bit, went to law school as a quote unquote grown up. I was a little bit older. I came out at 31. It was during the downturn that I went to law school. So I actually appraised during a lot of the go-go days. So although I'm not that old, I got a taste of really how fast and wild it was before the fall of 2008 crash. So, I mean, we were appraising like $50 million oceanfront hotels with non-recourse 90% loan to value loans. You know, the property contact would show up in a brand new curvy Mercedes, and, you know, it hadn't even been built yet. It was something else, but I think that what I took from that I apply now, you know, it was good to see. I don't think that's where we're headed, or I wouldn't be so active right now, but it was good to see a time that was a little scary, you know, really good, scary. And then I'm probably naturally, my personality is more assertive and fun and aggressive, but my investing style is pretty shrewd. And so I took a lot of lessons from appraising before and then through the downturn. Is really pretty critical. As I mentioned, I went to law school at around age 30. I knew I was going to do real estate when I got out, but when I got out, unfortunately, you know, it was 2013 and real estate firms were just trying to stay afloat. If you were doing maybe bankruptcy or foreclosure, landlord tenant, maybe you were staying busy, but my contacts really weren't hiring. And so I ended up jumping right into commercial brokerage. I already had the license. Like I mentioned, I got it while I was a school teacher. I dusted it off, and full-time commercial brokerage in 2013, 14, 15. I still broker some, but I have to say most of what I broker now, I'm involved in the deal. Maybe I'm representing myself, representing a colleague, or maybe investing in the deal. So not a ton of third-party brokerage, but I do think that's a great skill set. So I'm waiting on my bar results. I end up passing Florida bar, and what I've been doing to keep the lights on is title and escrow. I call it boutique brokerage. So kind of a la carte commercial brokerage. And kind of why I'm probably sitting here now talking to you is in 2017 is when I started to get into my own deals. And it all started with this little, decrepit house for $38,000 down the street from me. And, you know, we can jump into specific deals later if you want, but at 1031 that into, rehabbed it on, you know, Home Depot credit cards, and 1031 that into an 8-unit. And then I did a 28, and then I did an 83, and I picked up a quad. So I've been a little bit of a solopreneur. I think we got up to 125 units. I did sell 39 of them a couple of years ago because I thought we were going to crash. And now I wish we still had them. But you know, I've been fortunate. I've done a lot of it on my own. 2 really good partners, one on each deal, close friends. So what I'm jealous of that you have going on that I would possibly look to emulate is I haven't necessarily built a polished professional team because of my diverse background in education. You know, I can negotiate, I can write the contract, I can run my own cash flows. But the problem is, just because I can do maybe all the pieces, it doesn't mean I should, and I can't scale by myself. So I love listening to your show and hearing you talk about kind of the who, not hows, and the teams and
teamwork.
You know, exactly. So I think that crystal ball my future, I do want to go ahead and professionalize a team and do things at a little bit larger scale.
Yeah. Dude, you are remarkable. What a great story. I mean, that's an awesome profile right there. Back that up 7 or 8 minutes and listen to that all over again. I mean, that you have such an amazing background. And I think this whole, especially when you struck gold when your friend brought you into that appraisal situation where you became an appraiser, commercial real estate appraiser for 5 years. I mean, you were in the trenches of the business and really right where the rubber meets the road. I mean, you're almost like the referee on the field, like calling the game, you know, like in a lot of ways. And so you have to know everything there is to know about the business at at least to be good at it. And I'm sure that, I'm sure year one, you didn't know everything you knew by year 5, but holy moly, what an incredible background to have to then take, years later into an investing career and have the ability to underwrite, have the ability to determine value scientifically and methodically, and with a lot of confidence that, a lot of beginners and newer underwriters aren't going to have. But then not only did you do that, then you went and did the law thing and then became a broker. I mean, you've really done it all, Ian. So I can't think of, I love this approach in general to becoming an investor, where you go to work for somebody in some facet of the business and some aspect and some role. And I mean, maybe you're making enough to get by and pay the bills and whatnot. And I mean, sometimes maybe you're not, right? We were talking before we started recording about student debt and but how crippling that can be. And so really, like, you can look at going and doing a couple year internship for free or for a very low amount of pay in one of these industries is something that might be worth considering, given you got to go into 6 figures worth of debt to get a degree these days. And you really, I mean, you went and got your degree, but had you not gotten your degree, you would still have every bit of all the qualifications and experience and knowledge and, specialized knowledge, all that stuff, to really be a good investor. But wow, I'm just kind of blown away. That's just such a great foundation to build on. You're not even 40 yet, are you?
Not till February.
Oh man. Oh, to be in my late 30s again. I would love that.
Late.
I still feel like I'm in my late 30s, but I'm not actually not that close to my late 30s anymore. But
well, I can't tell from this call. Maybe it's a close shave, but the baby face looks good.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm blessed with the baby face.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit more about your friend. What's become of that relationship? I'm just curious, the friend that got you into being an appraiser.
He stayed a close mentor, and I guess when I say mentor, that term's used a lot differently than like the thought leadership world, but a confidant and a friend. He knows my family incredibly well. Mm-hmm. And we had some serious personal setbacks, and he was just there to kind of keep me up. I'm not going to go into depth. My father passed away at age 59, really unexpectedly. And he was a real like kingpin in the family. And he was not an investor or an entrepreneur. He was an attorney, and he was in Jacksonville, Florida here with me. And I just, it kind of kickstarted me into, I guess I always thought I'd be a little bit under his wing and we'd be in Jacksonville, and I wasn't sure what we'd do, but as a young man, I just felt like protected and shielded because my dad was a big presence, a great man. And so when he passed away, I really, once I got done with the grieving process, I really felt like I needed to grow up quickly, and I needed to carry my own shield metaphorically. And now I have my own children. It really like light speeded me into just probably manhood, honestly. And just part of that is obviously providing. And my dad was a solopreneur, but like I said, he wasn't a real estate guy. He ran a law firm, and he gave back a lot. He cared much more about others than himself. But I knew that I needed to, it was my time to go. And I think that that's where I started to just devour education. I mean, the appraisal, the brokerage, the law. I mean, I was just, and to be clear, I was not a great undergrad student, but I also wasn't very motivated. I was playing rugby, having a great time, tons of friends. Then with kind of the family tragedy and growing up and having a family, really grew up fast. Now when I attacked school, I had I had much better GPA in law school than undergrad, which is kind of unheard of. And I did well on the Florida bar, passed with a good margin. And I'm not being braggadocious. It was just about focus. It's just all of a sudden I was like, I've got to do this because there's nobody else to do it for me. And that's probably, I haven't really contemplated that notion too much, but that's probably why I've done a lot of these deals alone. It's just the mindset I had going out was like, kind of like that Jocko extreme ownership. Like it's all on you, you get it done and the outcome is no matter what, it's all on you. So it might not be the healthiest at all times. And like I said, I do want to, syndicate and partner and spread and grow, but I have been pretty like a buzzsaw, for the past 7 years.
Yeah. And, there's a lot of different ways to do multifamily, or at least there's a handful of different major ways to do multifamily. And you can do, in my opinion, you can do a solopreneur version of multifamily, but you're still going to need your team. Like, you're not going to be able to, let's say, for instance, you got 100 units on your own and they're cash flowing well and they're paid for and that can be game over, like financial freedom, everything you're looking for right there. But like, I lost my train of thought because I got so excited about financial freedom. Anytime you get me on that, I lose my train of thought. But, at the end of the day, like I was saying, there's a lot of different ways to do it. And there are models, and I've seen people do small versions of a multifamily portfolio. But like I said, you're still going to be working with a property manager, likely, unless you really love self-managing, which I don't know anybody that does or would want that kind of lack of freedom in their life, quite frankly. So you've got that to deal with. You're going to be like, even if you're not an internalized team, you've still got your team. You've still got your lawyers and your lenders and your investors. And eventually you're going to need to be managing those investors well and handling your investor relations at a very, very high level with a ton of integrity. And you want to make sure nothing's slipping through the cracks there. So like all of a sudden, as you scale up, the stakes get a little higher, and I think it gets a lot more fun, quite frankly. But you really got to embrace the teamwork thing. And, I think I'm kind of naturally a trusting person. I generally trust people until they show me a reason not to. I know a lot of people aren't like that, and it hasn't always worked out great, that approach, quite frankly. And with partners, I've been blessed. Like the partners that we've been involved with in the last year and a half that we worked with have all been fantastic. And I think if you put that intention out there and you're the kind of like leader that, and the kind of, you've got a ton of leadership qualities and experience in your background. I mean, for being a football coach is a wonderful example of that. And that's the kind of thing that's going to make other people want to work with you and invest with you. And you're going to attract who you are, I think, to a large degree. You're going to attract what you're putting out there in the way of partners. So, and I think at the end of the day too, there's such a thing as luck, and, like getting a great partner, that enhances your business, and where the two of you or three of you together are much greater than the sum of the parts. The whole is its own magical, fantastic creation. Like, that's juicy, and it's really fun. And I personally really thrive in that environment. I'm not, I don't do well sitting home all day by myself working, and I need a team around me, and I'm lucky to have that here. So awesome. So talk a little bit about what you guys are tackling right now, Ian, in the way of deals. Kind of, if you could wave your magic deal wand, what would you come up with right now? Like, what's a home run for you guys?
Certainly. And just to dovetail on where you finished, and then we'll jump into that, that the book Rocket Fuel has the quizzes in it, and you can be a visionary or an integrator. And I think a lot of your audience might have read that book. If they haven't, it's a good one. But I was surprised. I thought I might be, I know I'm gregarious and extroverted and like to talk to strangers, but I really thought my integrator score would be higher than it was. I was pretty lopsided visionary. And what I took from that, because I've been a solo, or maybe I've had an assistant for years, but I've been making all of my own decisions on a lot of things for many years. Your quality of life, your happiness with your work, it can get low, or you can get down. And I think part of what that, even when you're having success, and I think that's when I read that book, it wasn't like, oh, I'm surprised I'm a visionary. It was more like, by having the right team, by bringing in a good integrator, I know what'll happen. I can just focus on more of the visionary components of the business. And I know my quality of life is going to go up, even if I were to work harder, longer hours, because I'm in my core competency. And I think no one told me these terms when I started. Honestly, reading some of these books it's just the past couple of years, but now I'm seeing that the benefit being you can really go where you excel and let somebody else be an integrator or whatever you need. It's kind of funny. My whole family is probably all visionaries if they took the test. So I just assumed growing up there were no integrators on the earth, because I was just surrounded by, people that would poll visionary. And so it's a beautiful thing that there are integrator personalities out there, and someone like me and maybe you could benefit from them. But to fast forward to where you said like an ideal for us, I did a deal 3 years ago that pretty much set us up. I did one preceding that was also very good. I'll go to that one. So my quick flow chart here, because I know the listeners kind of like the specifics here. I started in 2017. I just bought a $38,000 commercially zoned house. It had never been commercial, but it was commercially zoned. So again, appraisal hat. I know I can flip it and sell it. Never really wanted to be a house flipper, but I had to get some cash. So I knew I could flip it, or I could put like a plumber, electrician, landscape company, somebody in there as a tenant. I'm only going to be into the thing for 80, 90 grand. And I could probably get, $1,500 a month in, a commercial tenant rent, or just flip it. I was, shooting for like a 125 to 150 exit. And so ultimately bought it hard money. I literally, as a real estate attorney, I was doing closings for fix and flip people. And I just look at who did their mortgage. I'm signing it and recording it, so, okay, I know who's doing the mortgage. So I tracked down that lender from a fix and flip closing that I did. And, lo and behold, they were willing to give me money with no investor experience. I mean, they liked my resume, but I hadn't done any deals. And so I got that fix and flip hard money loan. And it was a 12-month interest only. I got right to that month 12 and sold it so I could 1031 it. And so I 1031 my first, it was a small deal, but I still 1031'd it. And it made $55,000. And that was the perfect equity to close on a 8-unit concrete block 8-unit with in Jacksonville. These are all in Jacksonville right now, with housing authority tenants. So those are voucher tenants like HUD and Section 8. Sure. And so it was a pocket listing. I'm throwing a lot of jargon around, but what's beautiful, if you make your daily income in real estate, you're going to tease out some opportunities almost by happenstance or accidentally. So by being a real estate attorney, by being a broker, by being an appraiser. Now, I must confess, I haven't been writing appraisals. I've been mostly doing law and brokerage, and of course, recently investments. But by having pocket listings, I've bought pocket listings or wholesale deals that I know nobody else is seeing. I'll have a client that says, Ian, I want this property sold, but you don't tell anybody about it. Don't put it on CoStar. Don't put it on LoopNet. Don't e-blast it. But if the perfect buyer comes around, let me know. Well, it's essentially not for sale at that point. So I know I have like private access to a property, and that was one that I purchased, an 8-unit for $220,000, which sounds very low. It was low then; it's still low. So that was a good deal. 1031 in voucher tenants. I did sell my first deals pretty quickly because I needed to capitalize. So I sold the 8-unit. So that was a 220 purchase. Sold it for 370, 365, nice. 370 shortly thereafter. I did a 28 unit, and I did partner on that one, not a syndication, but a partner. 28 unit. We bought it for 875. 18 months later, that was a 1.62 disposition So that was the first, those couple deals combined. I was like, okay, now we're starting to roll a little bit. And then I did a couple less noteworthy deals. I did a little 3-unit. I bought a duplex down by the ocean. That's like a short-term furnished rental. And then I did the one that's really got us set up nicely. I say us, it's me and one partner, 83 unit in Valdosta, Georgia. And we've had that for 3 years. And it was off market. It was, you're not gonna believe me, but it was 11 a door, pretty much fully occupied. And it's I think we just appraised it like close to 50 a door, and
Wow.
we're just renovating out of cash flow and that. So
wow,
it's funny because real estate is a long game. However, you have to maintain long vision, but there's a lot of very quick. There's some moments in there where you need to move like a panther, even though you're playing this really long game. And I find that being the hardest thing to explain to people is they're like, oh, well, Ian, you made like a lifetime's worth of money on like one deal. Well, yes and no. Like, yes, the deal had that amount of money, but I was looking at deals for 5, 6, 7 years, and I was already investing. This one just happened to pop up and we were ready to grab it. That same deal could have happened to me 5 years prior. I probably would have like choked on it. Like, I don't know that we could have taken it down because we weren't really there yet. Mm-hmm. So it's one of those things. Yes, a whole lifetime's worth of income might have been made in one deal, but you can't just go into real estate thinking I'm looking for that one deal. If you play the averages, eventually by having good habits, you're going to get one of those.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. And like you said, I mean, if you're doing something in real estate every day, especially commercial real estate, and that we kind of everybody that I think is listening and hangs out around this show really wants to be in the larger scale, commercial space. But if you're doing something in that space that where you're making your living, either, like you did, broker, appraiser, lender, property manager, even like property managers see tons of deals. Like a good property manager that's out there in the field talking to owners, they talk to more owners than brokers do, and probably know more about a lot of the properties and the owner situation. So that's another potential. We almost got a deal through one of our property managers. We didn't end up getting it, but and we've got a property manager in Oklahoma City that's part of a brokerage that we've done deals with. So again, it's all, you end up doing so much of this with other people, and you have your team, whether it's an internalized team, like kind of like Greenlight, where I've got 2 partners. We're bringing on an operations coordinator. We're going to be bringing on an asset manager at some point in the next 12 months, I'm sure. And we'll continue to grow with assistants and all that stuff. But I think what I see in all of that is freedom. Like at the end of the day, if all of those people that I just went through are awesome at what they do, and they love what they do, and they're generally just really excited and productive and happy and out to make my life better, and I'm out to make their life better, and etc. Like, that's freedom for me. And ultimately that's the ability for me to continue in our business, or not, if I decide not to at some point. But at this point, this is my baby and I love it. It's like, I'm an artist, I think, by nature. I grew up as a photographer and a musician, and this is a little bit like an art for me, this business. And doing the podcast is another creative aspect of it. But doing these deals and getting them from the point that you are vetting them and underwriting and checking out if you want to write a letter of intent and that stage, all the way to the point of just closing it, to the point of owning it, is a huge process. And then at that point, that's day one right there. You basically fought this incredible battle to get to day one. And then at that point, you own the asset and the business plan is on you. And, for me, that's that's a big day, because all of a sudden there's 50 families or 80 families or 179 families that are counting on me to be good at what I do, as far as owning and operating apartment communities and making them healthy, happy places to live. So we take that really seriously here, and hopefully that it shows at the end of the day in our communities. And we're at the very beginning of repositioning like 4 or 5 of our communities right now. And so we're in very much in stage 1, and it can get a little discouraging in this stage because you don't have the vision yet. You can't quite see what you're intending to have happen yet. But so anyway, I think what we do is really cool. And I think you get it. Like, you seem to get that aspect of it too. Like, at the end of the day, we're dealing with people, and you get people, Ian. I can tell that. You're a motivator, you're a coach, you're a teacher. Like, I just to reflect on that for a second, I so wish that it wasn't so hard for you to have made it financially in that role. It's almost heartbreaking because of the difference somebody like you can make in kids' lives and in communities' lives and whatnot. And it's just a bummer to me that teachers and coaches aren't paid more in our world. But side note.
I agree. Yeah, no, I totally agree. Yeah. And I don't want to, cut you off there because you're on a really good roll. I think that, for me, by having this, relatively newfound freedom, and here we are, we're podcasting, we're spreading, I believe, a positive message. And how could I really coach again, whether it's financial coaching or literally on the field, football, track, wrestling. I got into martial arts during law school, doing like jujitsu and Muay Thai, and surfing. I'm a Florida guy. I like to get out in the ocean and surf. But whatever it is you want to help people do or expose people to, you have to have the time and resources to do it. And by getting into what we are and creating passive income and some hang time, as I think I've heard one of your guests call it, where you can float in between, capital events. Then you really have the freedom of thought, the freedom to do what you want with your passions and pursue them. I have a 16-year-old, and then I divorced and remarried. I have a 1 and 3-year-old. So I'm right back in the throes of like little kid land. And I have so much, don't get me wrong, I get worn out, but I have so much more bandwidth and time to be with them and just experience that than I did with my 16-year-old. And that really is because of what we're talking about on this show. I mean, by getting into passive income, I'm not trying to pull all these buzzwords, but by literally getting an asset that cash flows and that you don't have to stress about, and you've built a good enough team to where you can go to bed, there's going to be a check next week and everything's going to be fine. It gives you such serenity, and you can really enjoy the people around you. I was stressed about money so long as a school teacher, even as a young attorney. I mean, I came out in 2013, I had a 6-figure negative net worth. I mean, it's almost embarrassing, but it's just part of my story. There's no way around it. And it's just big law school loans. And I thought I was going to make a lot of money coming out of law school. And it really wasn't there, not in real estate law in 2013. And so I've long since worked my way through that, and I've turned a -100 and, I don't know exactly today, but some multi-million position to me individually. And I'm good. I don't live a crazy lifestyle. My family's happy. Like I said, we got a duplex at the beach that we kind of Airbnb, but I can block it. We can go down there and play in the summer. It's full of surfboards and gear. And, you can have the lifestyle creep that takes you out of this game, but I am quite happy with what I'm doing. You had a guest on recently. I don't want to botch his name, but David Tupin. Yeah, you got it. Yeah. And, I'd never heard him speak before, but his discussion, he's a young guy, which is kind of fun, but his talk is not so much about doors, and it was more about like balance sheet and cash flow. And he did have a unique concept of like doubling your net worth every year. I don't know exactly how I would do that right now, but I like that interview you did. But his approach is probably a little more aligned with mine, because I'm not a syndicator, at least right now. I would like to do some syndications, but I've done well with either solo or partnership. And for me, it was always, you know this too, if you can find a deal, especially one that a lot of people don't know about, because in today's economy, if too many people know about it, it's probably no longer a deal. But if you can get a deal with good margin and upside, the rest is probably going to sort itself out. You could have lackluster management. You could get told no by a bank or two, but someone's going to do a good deal. And, that 83 unit that my partner and I bought in Valdosta, I mean, I had done a 28, I'd done an 8, I'd done some small stuff, but, we were just willing to go for it. And we found a local lender to do it. And I mean, what I would advise to people that are listening is, if you're trying to figure out maybe how to break in, and there's a lot of different schools of thought on this, my advice would be, consider a profession, and maybe you don't keep it forever, but consider a profession that already puts you in front of deals. I know it's not the easiest to jump from maybe real estate law to investing or appraisal or brokerage, but I did it, and I think others could, and it wouldn't necessarily have to be one of those areas. I do think commercial brokerage, jumping into investment and development, pretty common. It puts you in front of deals. You get used to underwriting. Even if you're just writing BPOs and meeting with owners, you're getting better and better at running cash flows and interviewing owners. And so I think that, because most of us, going back to that hang time comment, and that just being the time when you don't have cash flow, most of us don't have any hang time coming in, so if you can ride 2 horses, but one of them is still in real estate, it's going to open you up to more opportunity, in my opinion. And it might even train you in things. So when you finally do have your capital group, or you're ready to syndicate, if you've already been appraising or running cash flows, or, I mean, even if you've been writing insurance or doing real estate closings, at least you can add something to that team that you've been professionally trained in before you come in.
Mm-hmm. Right. And then you've got all the skill and background and knowledge that you just gained by doing all that work with those guys. And you're so much better off for it to go out and do it yourself now, and
yes,
be your own best client, as one of my very early mentors said to me as a realtor. Like, as an investor, you want to be your own best client as a realtor, right? Like, or your realtor client. But Ian, one of the things I want to just kind of bring it back around full circle is, you seem to be wired to see the big picture, and you saw that you saw it early with the first time you wrote a rent check. Like, most people write a rent check for the first time and they think, oh, that's the first rent check I'm going to write for the rest of my life. Like, or, the first of, thousands and thousands of rent checks I'm going to write, or maybe I just graduated into adulthood because I wrote my first rent check, or something like that. But you immediately saw the big picture, which is like, you want to be on the other side of that equation. You want to be the one receiving that check. How do you do that? And you were asking those questions early on in college, and before any of your other experience was there, before your mentors were there, before your friend that got you into appraising was there. Like, you were still thinking innovatively and progressively, and that really that's kind of like something I think you're just born with, honestly, like, or you're just kind of wired that way. Maybe there was some conditioning along the way. Maybe you were taught some stuff, because it sounds like you came from a family of visionaries. But at the same time, like, I don't know, when I was talking just now, Kobe just came into my head. Like Kobe had that wicked talent, right? Like, there's nothing you can do about that. There's no way to defend it. There's just, you can't really mitigate it. And you combined some really like good raw talent with some great experience. And now, like, you're poised, you've got a portfolio going already. You're seeing what the next steps look like. It's likely going to be syndicating, which, you're either going to become your own capital raiser yourself and get a platform together and do the webinars and that sort of thing, or you just partner with a capital raiser and bring them in as co-GP, and they handle all of that, and you do what you're good at and drive from the front, so to speak. So, that's the reality of what I think the next like step up looks like for you, probably. Have you given that a whole lot of thought, the capital raising aspect of things?
Probably mostly in the context of what I was saying earlier, where we didn't have any issue finding a partner or money. Like on our 83 unit, we had it wasn't that large of a purchase for 83 units. It's only 900 grand. It's kind of crazy, but we did have a second position mortgage that, they were just happy to get a rate of return on their second mortgage. It padded a lot of our equity. I would have done that deal differently now. I think I would have done a debt fund type deal and then go and do an agency refi, because that deal has made us, it's made us really quite wealthy. Part of why we've had not a lot of cash flow is we're always rolling it back in. So we're essentially doing what could have been a bridge to take out, and we could have done that maybe like in a year, call it 18 months, but we're approaching 3 years and we are half renovated. We've got like 44 of 83 renovated, but the building, in my mind, it's healing itself. We just put a probably like a 3.5% agency loan on it, interest only for a couple of years. So we got even more free cash flow now. Our collections are up. So there's nothing to complain about with that deal, but you just learn so much more about structuring. And more to your point directly, I think for me in this particular, economic climate, I've been wrestling with chicken or the egg, do I try to raise money and get people excited and lathered up, or go find deals, or both? And keep in mind, it's really just me at this moment. So the capital raising, because I like the idea of having a fund, I've heard some pretty good, information on it. But then again, if you have a fund, you better have a way to deploy this capital. So true. Anyways, so I have given it thought, and I think I've just come back to the conclusion I always come back to, and it's the deal prevails. So it's on me or my relationships or we need to find something investable with safe margins where I could justify bringing people in. So that's kind of where my head's at with it.
Yeah, you and I think a lot alike in that regard. I'm very much a deal first guy, and sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I hesitate to even share that because it's not textbook, so to speak, with a lot of people to lead with going out and getting deals first. In fact, it's really taught by a lot of the best syndicators to go out and raise capital first. And I've just found it easier, quite frankly, to raise capital when there are real tangible opportunities to be had and to look at and to evaluate, and assuming that we're doing everything that the SEC requires, which we always do. Yeah, we just work them. And so let me ask you, in terms of like next steps, are you guys market specific? Are you kind of like geographically thinking about where you're expanding into these days, or are you more focused on the like specific asset class? So
I know that your platform and your audience is very multifamily centric, and my progress has been pretty much multifamily. I did a downtown Jacksonville building that was bought and sold that did pretty well. I'm comfortable in other asset classes. So I'd probably just chase yield, honestly, to say it quite frankly. I would do an apartment deal if I can get my yield. And as you know, a lot of the yield is going to be driven by your structuring. I mean, what's your cost of capital? I mean, some of these deals that don't seem investable become investable with today's cost of capital. So, yes. I think that's why a lot of them get done. But, I would do surface storage like boat and RV. Those are usually hold for future development, but they can cash flow quite well in the interim. And at least here in Florida, a lot of the, some of the land, you can still get some seller financing to where if you can have an interim cash flow, maybe it'd be apartments later. Like I said, surface storage now, I would do a deal like that. My stuff down by the coast and the beach, I'll go ahead and say it. Here's my favorite. If you're going to go ahead and self-manage or not, I think the most hands-off but high revenue rental approach, at least in my area, furnished rentals. And in Jacksonville and Florida, short-term tax kicks in after under 6 months. So I love a furnished rental that is 7+ months. It could be 7 months. It could be 36 months. I don't care, but over 6 months, because you don't have the turnover. My stuff down at the beach, I mean, it's like $3,000 a month with a deposit. They care about their credit. They do not want an eviction. If they were going to have a problem, they would just call me. So I actually self-manage too at the beach, but I don't even think about them most days. And that's a sweet spot because I'm not paying Airbnb close to 20%, not paying the Florida Department of Revenue high teens on short-term lodging. So that's great. I think more people should consider. I know it's a pain to furnish, and most of your audience would probably want to hear about more doors. But if you're doing some nicer projects, some garden style apartments, you might consider putting some IKEA furnish in there, some professional photographs, and people are building homes, or I'm in Florida, so we got COVID refugees. We call them. They want to come down from cold markets and be warm, and we have a pretty pro government. Well, I won't get into that, but you've been able to take your mask off and run around and do a lot here for a while. And we've had a lot of population. So like in Jacksonville, we're getting 25 to 30,000 people a year moving here right now. That's a lot of people. We're not building anywhere near that amount of housing. So if those people want to build a home, they're going to probably have to wait. It probably doesn't exist yet. So having a nice, cute furnished rental in a decent area, people will pay a lot of money. And it doesn't have to be large. As an appraiser, or when you run your cash flows, you're always looking at that price per square foot of rent. It's kind of how you play apples to apples. Or 70 cents a foot a month, or is this one $2 a foot a month? Well, I mean, I'm doing like $3 a foot a month down at the beach, which is just kind of crazy. But in my opinion, the consumer for this product, they don't necessarily care about the size of the unit. Is it cute? Is it functional? Is it good to go? Can I just bring my suitcase and stay here for 6 months and walk the neighborhood low stress? I've had some success in that area. It's kind of the opposite of getting the 100, 200, 300 unit, but you might be able to find a 4, 8, 12 garden, maybe a 20, and do it right, and just run it like almost like an extended stay hotel with pretty low management, especially if you charge the right price points. And I think you might be surprised how it does.
Yeah. Furnished, like again, lots of ways to skin a cat, and furnished rentals, shorter term, but not nightly. All that model, like that's a real thing. There's corporations that need housing for their employees for 6 months at a time, or three months at a time. There's universities that have adjunct professors that come in, and like that's a real thing here in Salt Lake City. People, lots of people need shorter term housing, and furnished makes it even more valuable and more appealing. So well said. Awesome. So you guys get out and surf. What else do you guys, what else do you like to do for fun, Ian?
So for fun, I did get a boat this year, nothing crazy, but little Craigslist special. We've been having fun on that. Cool. Little 20-foot bow rider, taking the kids tubing and having fun. I do like to get out into the woods when I can, definitely get into the ocean, a little bit of, jujitsu when I'm feeling healthy. And, and I have been putting more time into, although I have a lot of formal education, and I'm proud of what I've pulled off in my investments in the past 5 years. I'm almost retooling right now, because I do feel like the game has changed a bit, and the deals that I did aren't necessarily replicable today, in all candor. So I feel like more of like how your green light equity group is handling things. I think that to get some scale is where you're going to finally, maybe make some things make sense. So I've been retooling and reading and reconsidering what I would do. And I want to fly right underneath where, the large regional or institutional guys would fly, so I don't mind having a scattered portfolio with, 20s and 40s and 60s, and, it's okay.
Yeah. Nice. Yep. Nicely done. Are you doing anything with crypto?
The answer is no. I'll go ahead and answer. But I've decided I would. So I think the next time I have like a disposition or a big, capital event, which who knows, maybe I'll be priced out by then. But I'm kind of tangenting. When I was a broker, I would, if I had a big, I call it pop money. If I had a commission, something that was unexpected and large, I would try to do at least one a year where that money went straight into an investment. Real estate is what it's been. I thought about taking one of those pop moments and just see how many coins I can get and pretend it never happened, and don't get too married to it. But
yeah. I think if you're willing to put it in and sit and just let it go. Oh man, for a lot of people are talking about this like it's bigger than the internet was in terms of human history. One guy was saying it's the biggest thing since the printing press, like this blockchain technology. And so I'm learning. I'm very, very much a newbie and just barely got some assets into it. So I'm always fascinated to get the smart guy's perspective in the room. And so I appreciate you sharing.
Might have to save that for the next interview.
Awesome, Ian. Well, this has been fantastic. I so appreciate you hanging out with me. Do you have any last words of wisdom to investors that are, kind of where you were maybe 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and looking to get where you are now?
There's a pretty simple concept that it's, a cash flow quadrant or a rich dad poor dad idea, but the idea of get an idea of where you want to be. So have that notion, whether it's a full blown, vivid vision or not, and then just think about, because a lot of us are pretty good problem solvers. If you're a CPA, an engineer, an attorney, a broker, an appraiser, whatever you are, you probably have some great skill set that you don't think of. Get that goal and just start backing into it. As long as you're chipping away. I love the accumulative effect of small action.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've done anything amazing in a single day, but over the course of the past, 7 to 10 years, I've chipped away at a lot of stuff. So I really like just getting momentum and chipping away. I think that if you're, high student debt, maybe you've got a family, you just can't figure out how to break into this, and you don't have a lot of hang time, like we talked about, I would consider maybe one of these professions like appraisal, commercial brokerage. You might need a stipend if you do commercial brokerage because that has its own hang time, but get into something where you're on the front of deals, and then you'll know when it's time, or you can bring the deal you found to the group you work for, and maybe they'll bring you some equity. Most of the groups would. So I would try to find a way to make a living in this space, and you'll know when it's time to step out.
Yep. Perfect. Well said. Good advice. All right, listeners. Well, Ian, thanks a ton, and really appreciate you sharing all your wisdom with us, man. You've got a ton of it, and I appreciate it. I look forward to following what you get done here in the next couple of years, and let's circle back around in a year or so and powwow again.
I'd love to. See where things are in a couple of years.
All right. Sounds good. All right, listeners, thanks for listening to another one of these Apartment Guys episodes. Appreciate you. And we'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for listening to The Apartment Guys with Tate Seamer. Tate and friends are grateful to have you as a loyal listener. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, rate, review, and share with friends on your Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, or any other podcast platform. Also, check out Tate's YouTube channel for videos of many of these episodes and more. Until next time, take massive action steps and rock on.